Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, in this opportunity, I would like to present a paper with the title Students' Mathematical Argumentation Ability based on Mathematical Material and Semiotic Approach. The paper was written by me, Lia Budi Tristanti, and Prof. Toto Nusantara. Mathematical materials emphasize the ability to prove, including algebra, analysis, spatial geometry, and calculus. Mathematical materials emphasize the ability to prove, including algebra, analysis, spatial geometry, and calculus. The concepts of fundamental analysis and geometry of space are mathematical subjects studied at universities. Before studying the material, students must understand geometry, abstract algebra, number theory, and calculus before studying the material. Students have studied spatial geometry from elementary school to college. In contrast, the prerequisites for accurate analysis are studied mainly by students in higher education. In addition, the concept of fundamental analysis is more abstract than the geometry of space. Thus, research that focuses on real analysis and spatial geometry need to be carried out on an ongoing basis, including studying student arguments. In developing students' mathematical argumentation skills, educators need to pay attention to prerequisite material. Semiotics in mathematical arguments can be interpreted as the process of producing signs and symbols as part of a code system used to communicate information and show and ensure correct information. Semiotics include visual, verbal, tactile, and olfactory signs. Research on the semiotic approach in this argument is essential because semiotics have an important role in justification. Argumentation is one of the justification processes used to show and ensure the correct view of arguments directed at oneself or others. Through argument, someone tries to convince himself or others so that there is something to approach and argue to reach an agreement in justification. There are three objectives to be achieved in this study. They are to describe student arguments in solving real analysis problems with a semiotic approach, to describe students' arguments in solving spatial geometry problems with a semiotic approach, and the last, characterization of students' argument skills based on mathematical material with a semiotic approach. In this study, the research subject is student-teacher candidate of STKIP PCRI Jombang Mathematics Education Study Program in semester 4. The research instruments include proving problem-solving tasks, interview guidelines, and video recording. TPMP and video recording are used to describe the subject argument. TPMP contains mathematical problems that contain the concept of spatial structure and real analysis. The research procedures of the study includes three procedures. The first, the subject was given a mathematical problem and asked to express all that was thought as much as possible by voicing during the problem-solving process. So, we get the argument, not in dialogue. For the second stage, the subject conveys the arguments compiled to fellow students in a critical discussion. Fellow students can respond by accepting or supporting arguments to create a situation where the subject tries to convince his partner through an approach and debate. The process in the second stage obtained data arguments in the dialogue. And the last stage conducted a task-based interview based on the results of written and oral arguments or the subject's response. There are 8 stages of data analysis. They are data transcripts, data reduction, data code, checking data validity or data triangulation, reviewing data, interpreting findings, validating findings, and the last, drawing conclusion. The validity of the data used in the study is time triangulation, namely by giving a proof problem-solving test and interview at least twice at different times. If the test results produce different data, then it is done repeatedly so that data that is stable or credible is found. Okay, this is the result of our research. The first is students' arguments in solving real analytical problems with a semiotic approach. The subject conveys the data by saying that A and B are elements of real numbers. The symbol used by the subject is element, which means member. So the subject's gesture is the subject using the index finger, which leads to the sentence A and B elements of real numbers. There is a match between the speech, symbols, and gestures of the subject when conveying data. Result about the claim. The subject conveys the claim by saying that A plus X equal B has a single solution, namely X equal minus A plus B. The subject used the sign if, blah blah blah, then, and then the sign is interpreted as the word single solution. The subject's gestures appear when using a ballpoint pen to point at X equal minus A plus B, and the eyes are not directed towards the sentence, so that there is no match between symbols, speech, and gestures when the subject makes a claim. The following is a photo of the subjects when submitting a claim. Okay, as we can see in the picture, the eyes of the students are not directed toward the claim. So the subjects using a ballpoint pen to point at X equal minus A plus B. The subject conveys the warrant with words as written, namely, the subject proves that the solution of A plus X equal B is X equal minus A plus B. Then shows that X equal minus A plus B is a single solution. The symbol used by the subject is to write a symbol of a mathematical formula that indicates the result of an algebraic operation. The subject guide includes the index finger indicating each step of problem solving. There is a match between the speech, symbol, and gesture of the subject when conveying the warrant. However, the subject only conveys one warrant. The subject conveys the packing with speech, namely algebraic operations, addition, inverses, and identity elements. The symbol used by the subject is brackets, which is defined as the basis of the step. Subject gestures include using a ballpoint pen to indicate backing and underlining. There is a match between the speech, symbol, and gesture of the subject when conveying the backing. Here is a photo of the subject when delivering the backing in figure 3. As we can see in the picture, the subject conveys the qualifier and rebuttal, a firm facial expression, and a nod of the head and a wave of the hand indicating no rebuttal based on the word used. There are differences in the ability of mathematical arguments to solve real analysis problems and spatial geometry due to the character of the material. The subject has studied geometry material since elementary school, so that the subject can connect the interrelationship between shapes in geometry. In contrast, the subject began to study real analysis while in college. Based on the study's results, it appears that the subject used mathematical symbols to deliver arguments using the tool-mean schema component. Mathematical symbols are tools for coding, describing, and communicating mathematical knowledge. Symbols that appear in students' mathematical arguments when solving real analysis proof problems are in the form of signs, such as equal, arrow, and brackets, while the symbols used by the subject when solving the problem of proving the geometry of space are in the form of letter marks, for example, R, T, V, and sketch images. The subject used familiar symbols whose meaning has been understood by the subject and the subject's friends as the audience. Gestures in student arguments when solving proof problems are in the form of finger expressions, facial expressions, or eye gaze. The process of determining data, claims, warrants, and backing can be observed from the expression of the fingers or mimicking shown by the subject. The expressions of the subject's finger movements changes every step of solving the proof problem. This type of gesture is deictic, meaning it points to an existing object. This gesture is a natural gesture, which is a reflex movement as a form of strengthening the ongoing communication messages. Meanwhile, when determining the qualifier and rebuttal, the subject showed more assertive facial expressions, sharp eyes, nodded his head, and waved his hands as a sign that his argument was true and trustworthy, and there was no rebuttal. In this case, a bit gesture is a simple gesture that is repeated and used as an emphasis. Gesture representation is an action or movement that describes an abstract and concrete idea, entity, or event that is conveyed in words. Gestures emphasize more effectively than words. Gestures have proven helpful in supporting learning in various content, including real analysis and spatial geometry. Based on the research results, it can be concluded that the subject's mastery of mathematical material was used to build the content and quality of the argument. At the same time, the subject used the semiotic approach to convey arguments in the form of speech, symbols, and gestures. The student's argument in solving real analysis and spatial geometry problem with a semiotic approach is that the subject conveys data, claims, warrant, backing, and rebuttal with speech, symbols, and gesture using the index finger. When the subject conveys the qualifier and rebuttal, it is dominated by speech and gesture. The subject said that the qualifier of the conclusion was certain and there was no objection. The subject's gesture is with a firm facial expression, a head nod, and a hand wave indicating no rebuttal and using symbols as a sign of leverage. That's all our presentation. Thank you for the chance given and thank you for the attention. Goodbye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.